All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I would like to call the December 5th, 2022 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors workshop meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. In attendance is myself, Chairman Dave Gerstenhaber, Vice Chair Donna D., and Supervisors Torres, Johnson, and Dowling. Also in attendance are Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, our Township Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary Sarah Patton. And there is one member of the public. All right, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was the most in sync I've heard. All right, thank you, everybody. I'd like to open up the meeting for public comment. Public comment may include any comments related to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state your name and whether you are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer of the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment? Okay, not hearing any. Let's move on to the next item. Stefan? Okay.
I make a motion to approve version 1 of the Board of Supervisors workshop meeting minutes held on November 7th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Second by Dawn? Oh, Donna. Thank you, Donna. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Next, we're going to have three audit presentations from three separate audit firms as proposed to do our 2022 audit. The first one is Chris Herr from Malley. I think you're on the phone.
I am here.
We have your presentation. I think what we'll do is try to do maybe at 15 minutes at most, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, sounds real good. Thanks. I guess you can hear me okay. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I would have liked to have been. It was a little bit of short notice, so I figured Zoom would just be a little safer. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. I know I spoke with you last year. I don't know how many of you were there for that, so if I repeat myself, I apologize. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Chris Herr. I'm a partner with the firm. I've been here a little over 20 years now. My focus is governmental accounting and auditing. That is really all I do. It's all I've done for probably 15 years or over that at this point. I do run the firm's government sector as well. So I oversee everything we do. We do a significant number of boroughs and townships. There's a pretty lengthy list in the proposal of most of the municipalities we work with, and you'll note that I'm the engagement partner on a significant number of those engagements. So, as far as our process goes and sort of what I would envision coming in, doing a first-year audit, the first part of it would be really coming in, sitting down with your people and sort of getting to know you. And what I mean by that is I have a financial statement from a year or two ago, and that's, pretty straightforward. It's a cash basis DCD statement. But what I really want to do is sit down with your people and look over your processes, look over your procedures, see how things are running. A big part of that is sitting down with them and going through, all right, how do you run through a cash disbursement? What is your purchase order process? What's your approval process there? What's your invoice and receiving process? Who's doing approvals there? all the way through to check process, check signing process. What sort of reports are the board getting, providing them with quantitative and qualitative information regarding the disbursements on a regular basis. And then even taking that through the, what is the bank reconciliation process for everything. So we do that for disbursements. And then we do the same thing. We sit down and we talk to them about, cash receipts. What's your collection process? What's your recording process? How often are you taking checks to the bank? How often are you reconciling statements again? And again, what sort of reports are coming in to the board? We do that for payroll. We'll do it for journal entries to make sure that the journal entry process is sound and that there's not just employees of the township able to make journal entries without any oversight. We'll look at procedures over debt, anything over leases, credit cards, if there's any credit cards of the township. So it's really a top to bottom discussion and walkthrough of what are the processes and procedures of the township. Are they adequate? Even if they're adequate, is there anything I see there that could be implemented to make them better, to make them stronger? Adding, approval processes, anything like that. Once I sort of understand, the activities happening in the township, what are the processes, what are the procedures? The next big part of it is the actual audit testing. You guys are on a cash basis DCD format here. So, obviously the first thing is going to be, we'll go through, we're going to tie out every dollar of cash on your trial balance. We're going to look at the bank statements. We'll confirm that with the banks. If there's any reconciliations, we're going to look at those reconciliations and make sure that the items on there make sense. Outstanding checks really are outstanding. Outstanding deposits really are outstanding. All of those sort of things. We'll also look at, January. You're a December year end. We'll also look at the January statements as well for the subsequent month, just to make sure there's nothing happening there that got missed in the December statement. And that's really going to help nail down cash. From there, the fun part is the revenues and expenses. And that's where I will tend to dig in a variety of different ways. Anywhere we can confirm, your information with outside sources, we'll do that. So tax collectors will confirm all of that. Grants, if possible, we'll confirm any of that. A lot of your subsidy money that comes from the state, we can actually confirm right on the state website. So we'll do all that to get really comfortable with revenues. And then expenses, that tends to be, the biggest area of transactions. And there's a variety of things that we're going to do there. We do use data analytics, computerized testing. One of the things that I will do as part of any audit is I get the general ledger detail from your business office. So what that is a report of every individual transaction of the township by account, account number, fund, everything. And I'll take that detail and I'll put it into our computer system, and it lets me do a whole bunch of things. I can sort the data by vendor, look at what your top vendors are, look at what your smallest vendors are, make sure they all make sense. These are vendors that a township should be doing business with. I will also, I can sort the information month to month. So I might look at utility expense accounts and look at, okay, what is your utility expenses January, February, March, April, through the year. Look for any unusual increases or decreases in activity. If all of a sudden there's a month with no expenses, I'm going to dig into that and try to figure out what it is. If there's a month with unusually high expenses, I'll do the same thing. And one of the nice things is that over time, we can build our database with our clients. So, I won't just look at utilities for January through December of this year, but in year 2 of an audit, I can compare it to the prior year. Okay, there was an increase in, September, October, November this year. Was there a similar increase last year in September, October, November? And again, if there's a variation that we're not expecting, that's where I'll dig in. That's where I'll ask for invoices. That's where I'm going to try to ask for backup and figure out what's going on with your expenses. So we can do that month to month within the year and also compare, with prior years. Another thing I like to do is predictive analytics. This was something I started doing a few years ago. As part of your 22 audit, what I'll probably ask for is a trial balance for 2020 and 2021 as well. So I'm going to look at get a couple years of history there. And what I like to do is look at the in this case, 2020 expenses, 2021 expenses, come up with an expectation based on trends of what do I think 22 is going to look like? And then when I get the actual 22 numbers, compare them. Okay, here's what I thought 22 was going to look like. Here's what actually happened. And again, base my expense testing there. So if there was an expense account that was way higher than 20 and 21 or what I expected for 22, I'm going to dig into that expense account and test it. It's really all about all these different ways I'll approach expenses. It's really about coming in and not looking at the same, top 5 vendors every year or the top, 10 expense accounts every year. We'll certainly look at that stuff, but I also want to look at anything that looks unusual or unexpected. So that's all part of the expense process. Other things we'll do, payroll. I will look at every single W-2 that gets issued from the township. I do that for every municipal client I have. I will get my hands on all the W-2s for this year and last year. I'm going to look for any unusual variations in pay. If there is an unusual spike or decrease in pay, I'm going to look at it. I also like to look and see, is there a document that the township has of what were the approved salaries for 2022? And look at that and compare that to some of the W-2s and does this make sense? Are people getting paid what the township approved them for payment? We will look at insurance bills. I'm just trying to rattle off a few of the tests we do. We'll look at some of your health insurance, medical insurance bills, make sure everybody, that's on a medical insurance bill should be getting insurance benefits through the township. That's something else we'll do. We'll run Benford tables. Benford is a mathematical law. It says in any large randomly occurring series of numbers, the first digit will be 1 about 30% of the time. First digit will be 2 about 22% of the time, and it creates a curve down. So I think 9 is the first digit's going to be 9 roughly 8% of the time. So we'll run that through. We do the first digit. I do that at every client I do, school district, municipality. I run the first digit. It always works out to be a perfect curve. Then what I'll do is I'll run the first 2 digits. So whether it's $11 and change or $110 and whatever, or 1,100, I'll run that through. That's another place. That's where we'll tend to get some spikes. And again, we'll look at some of that stuff, just make sure there's nothing unusual happening. There's no manipulation of the accounting. Usually it ends up being just recurring payroll amounts on a biweekly basis, withholdings, things like that. So some other stuff we'll do in expenses. And again, it's all about trying to look at the data in different ways. And even if I'm running those same tests, for 2022 and 2023 and 2024, every year, different things are going to pop out. Again, it's just not about looking at the same expense accounts and the same vendors. It's about making sure we're not in a routine when it comes to doing your audit. We'll look at journal entries as well. Journal entries are any entries that are being made in the system outside of the typical cash receipt, cash disbursement, payroll processes. We'll make sure all those journal entries make sense, that there's not, sometimes that can indicate just errors that were made during the year. What we want to make sure of is that, there's no journal entries being made. There's not a failure in the internal control system that's causing those journal entries to need to be made. We're also going to make sure that all those journal entries are properly approved and all those sort of things. At that point of the process, when we're through the actual audit work, we've looked at the internal controls. At that point, we'll come up with a draft. We're required to issue a SAS 114 letter, which is a mandatory audit a communication with the governing board that'll talk about our audit and let you guys know if there was any issues, if there was any amount of journal entries. Another thing that we're required to do is if we do have deficiencies in internal controls, not necessarily anything being done wrong, it could just be things that we think could be done a little better. We'll issue a separate letter for that. It's called a SAS 115 letter. And we would certainly that's something that we would not be blindsiding anybody with, when we issue the final reports, that all that is things that we'd be issuing in a draft form ahead of time, to your business manager, to your township manager, that should also be shared with all of you before we issue a final report. If we would find anything glaring or concerning, that would be an instance where I might come directly to the board to discuss any potential issues that would arise during the audit. We hope that doesn't happen, but it's definitely happened to me a time or two in my career where I've had to do that, and we're not shy about it. We want to make sure that your finances are running the way they should be and the way you guys think they should be. And at that point, we can always come in. I do a significant number of board presentations at the end of the process to come in, sit down with you guys, talk about the financial results for the year, any trends that are happening over the last few years with the finances, and things of that nature. So I think that's really most of the process from beginning to end. I would be happy to field any questions if there are any.
All right, well, thank you. I'll open up the questions for the board.
Yeah, I have one. So Chris, you keep on saying I. Is it you? Are you the one who does it or do you have like a bunch of people that work with you?
We have a team, but I am heavily involved with every audit I do. So when I say I, it might be me doing a lot of this stuff. When it comes to those initial conversations, sitting out there with your business office, that is absolutely going to be me. Okay. When it comes to coming up with a strategy of what we're doing for confirmations and expenses, big picture, I'm leading that. But I do have people that'll be working for me. I'm not going to be the person out there, flipping through invoices, things like that, doing that level. But the higher level, big picture planning, discussions, that'll be me. Certainly at the end of the process, meeting with the board, that'll be me as well. So in order to even have that conversation, I have to be pretty intimately involved with everything that's going on during the process.
I have two quickies, Chris. Thank you. The software that you have in the presentation, Cashier ID, I believe, accounting research, is that something that our systems can easily integrate?
Yeah, I think I might have called it IDEA. It's called Data Extraction Analysis Tool. That's that tool I was talking about where I'm going to get your general ledger and bring it into our system and be able to sort through that data. I haven't found an accounting system yet that I have not been able to get it into our system, whether it's QuickBooks or I'm not sure what you guys run.
It's
most
quick.
systems.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's QuickBooks.
QuickBooks.
Yeah. QuickBooks is easy. QuickBooks, you can drill down in anything in the, there's an accountant module there. You can throw stuff out in PDF or Excel. We can bring any of that into the system. I have plenty of municipalities that use QuickBooks. We never have a problem with that.
And the second question I have, and this isn't meant to be contentious. I noticed that Township is a client of yours. Were they a client of yours 5 years ago?
They were not. We came in after the issues were discovered.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I have one question too. This year we revamped our QuickBooks so that the chart of accounts, if you want to call it that, or our line items are not going to match equally this year to last year. That's not a problem for you to kind of do your
No.
trending analysis, right?
No, we do software conversions. I mean, that's pretty typical that, clients of ours will go through a software conversion. So what we do is in our system that we use, we do a mapping. So we're going to take all of your whole trial balance, every account number, every description, every ending balance, and we put that into our system. We map it out, every individual account. Okay, this is a cash account. This is police expense. This is public works expense. So we'll do that. We'll map out all this year's accounts, and then we can do that with last year's accounts too, to kind of, even if the account number and name isn't the same, they're kind of sitting in the same area that we're using to analyze activity.
Yeah, in the same fund or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually at least by a department level, because that's what your DCD is reporting at. It's reporting fire, police, general admin, everything is separate. So we'll at least get it down to that level.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that it doesn't concern me, but I'm looking at all the people that you deal with, and it seems we are the only southern entity below Kennett. Is there any reason for that, or do you think that would be any problem for you? Would there be things that we come across that a lot of these it looks like a lot of larger clients that you have?
I have some large clients. I also have some very small clients that are comparable to you. North Wales Borough would be one. We just started working with Avondale. We have a number of smaller municipalities that do what you guys do, kind of a cash basis,
Okay.
DCD in QuickBooks. So that's not unusual. Distance wise, I didn't have any concerns about that. I mean, I've gone as far out as Lancaster County, York County for jobs in the past. We've gone north. I do Bangor Borough. That's 2 hours north of us. And even now I do some school districts that are pretty far south too. So I didn't even consider the distance. I really don't consider you guys that far away.
Okay. And I wondered about, size wise, if, like you say, you've worked with people more of our size.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of some of the other ones, like cash basis DCDs. Kennett right now, you mentioned that one, that's a cash basis DCD. Fullcroft Borough is another, one I work with. I mentioned North Wales. So yeah, there's a number of municipalities we have that are really kind of, you're in that wheelhouse. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So we have some members of our elected auditors on the line. I see Lynn is on the line. Lynn, do you have a question? She's on mute.
Hi, yes, I do. Can you tell me how you would plan to detect any related party transactions?
Yeah, there's a few ways that we'll do that. The one thing that we do is we send a questionnaire, an anonymous questionnaire to various individuals that work in the township and the board. And one of the things we'll do is we're just going to inquire, are you aware of any related parties? Beyond that, one of the things we'll do is when we bring in that general ledger detail, we're going to be able to sort through the vendors and look at vendors. And if there's anything, there's always some vendors that are, you're going to have your UGIs or your Comcast, you'll have some big vendors. But we might look at some of those smaller vendors too. It's not unusual for us to do some vendor testing where we will look up vendors online and just see what they're about, see who's, if they have an employee listing or anything like that. There's limits. There's only so much you can do there. But we will do some inquiry. We will do some vendor testing to look at that, especially if there's any unusual vendors. And we do a lot of municipalities. So we tend to see a lot of the same vendors in the government arena. So we tend to focus a little bit on some of the ones maybe we haven't seen before, just to kind of kick the tires a little bit.
Okay, thanks. And then, so you're going to be looking at the internal controls, and if needed, would you help us to develop like a procedure manual or to improve the process so that?
Yeah, I have to be a little bit careful there because we are independent. we're independent auditors, so we don't want to create, you know, the internal controls that we would then be testing as part of the audit. So we do have to remain independent, but certainly as part of the process, if we do see a deficiency, I can make recommendations. You know, I'm thinking about one I just had where I had a municipality where any checks under, was it $2,000? Any checks under $2,000 only required one signer. And I just don't like that as a rule. So that was an instance where I said, hey, I really think every check should have at least 2 signers. And I made that recommendation to them. And then it's really kind of up to them to decide who they want the 2 signers to be, but I can at least try to steer in a direction. But it's not a situation where I go, hey, this is wrong, and then I just walk away. I'm certainly going to be able to give some input. I can't write it for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
You have another question?
No, I just.
So I do have a question.
No one else had.
No, I do have a question. So this is maybe not so much for the auditing process, but you mentioned looking at using predictive analytics as part of your analysis.
Yeah.
So presumably that'll give us a forecast on future spending and future income, right? Based on previous year, data. So my question would be more about, so this is outside of auditing. Auditing is, hey, there's the discrepancy here. We need to solve this discrepancy, right? It's more about making sure we're on task. Predictive analytics, is this something where aside from auditing, you can come back and say, hey, Franklin Township, your spending is a little out of whack. If you spent this way, or your income comes in this way, if you spent that way, you might actually be able to maximize your cash flow through the organization. I'm thinking of it in terms of like a small business, right? How do you maximize your spending?
Yeah, the predictive analytics I do, it's really another way for us to identify where could there be a discrepancy and sort of aim where my testing's at. One of the things I do, I started this about 18 months ago, is I do a board presentation. It's about 5 pages, and there's some schedules in there. And one of the charts that I always tell everyone, this is the most important chart in here. I take fund balance, which for you guys would essentially be the same as cash, okay? Because you're cash basis. So cash really equals, there's no receivables, there's no liabilities. So cash equals fund balance. And what I do is I show that cash and what that cash level is over a number of years. That's really where I start to get into the conversation with boards about, hey, I'm worried about your spending. I'm worried about your revenues. I think you're trending in the wrong direction, or you're trending in the right direction. That tends to be where that comes from more so than the predictive analytics. That just sort of steers our testing. But I do look at sort of that big picture of, hey, revenues are stable, but I'm seeing, the police going up, 10% a year. I see public works going up 10% a year. Another thing that we will do is we'll do a quick comparison of your budget. So what did you budget for 2020 or 2022, and what actually happened for 2022? And that's always another source of good discussion of, hey, are you guys budgeting properly? Is the expense, budget realistic? If you're having significant overruns every year, maybe there's something in that process that needs to be addressed as well.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, it's very good.
Chris, I think that's it for the questions, and I want to thank you. You put a good proposal together too. Very, very complete, and it was a really good proposal. Like I said, everything in there is. It's in there. Everything you want to have. Sorry, but anything I wanted to know about Valley is in there for this audit. So
Good weekend reading. Glad to hear it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you all
Thanks,
very
Chris.
much. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Chris. See you, Jeff. I think it's Carl.
Melissa, feel free to ask a question
Oh, please
if you have.
Yeah.
It's,
I don't. have
okay. I just want to make sure that you'll feel comfortable asking them.
Because you'll be working.
You'll be working with.
Yeah, really.
So. So BBD.
I'm moving my seat.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
I'm doing good.
See that.
My name's Carl Hogan. I'm with the firm of BBD. We're out of Philadelphia. Even though I can't tell you the last time I saw my office in Philadelphia, I could say I'm rarely there. We are a, kind of unique firm in the fact that we're about 80 people large, in terms of, we have two divisions within our firm. I like to say we have the part of the firm that makes the money, which is the group that audits mutual funds, and then we have the non-for-profit and government group, and we audit, nonprofits and governments all year round. I think that makes us unique in terms of our, our group is because of the fact that we don't have any kind of tax practice. I mean, we do taxes for our nonprofit clients and so forth like that, but we don't audit any commercial. We don't do any individual tax returns. So this is all we do all year round in terms of we just audit municipalities and not-for-profit organizations. In particular, me, I do have some nonprofit clients, but as you can see within the proposal here, I would say all 80 of the government clients that are in here are, my clients that I have had gained through BBD, and my group of 10 people, we audit all 80 of the engagements in addition to the small amount of nonprofits we have. Any kind of nonprofits we have are generally associated with like a school district, like an education foundation, et cetera. But for the most part, my group and I, we audit governments all year round. So I guess, do you have any set questions for me or? No. Okay. All right.
Take us through your process, how you first.
Yeah, how you come in and approach the audit, being the first time you've been in here, what would you look at? How would you put it together? What would you compare it to?
Okay. So as part of a first year audit, what we would do is we would come in at the first year will take a little bit longer than the other years, just because of the fact that we have to come in, make a risk assessment of the township. And then also we would have to document your processes. And I'm sure you're going to hear this from everybody else too. Document your process, test those processes, test your internal controls. So when I look at Franklin Township and I look at your audit, I would think the biggest controls over Franklin Township would be number one, because you're on the cash basis. Your cash receipts, cash disbursements, and your payroll. Also, when you look at those individually, what would the biggest processes be with your cash receipts? What kind of controls do you have over your tax collector? You have an individual tax collector. So, even though they're kind of a separate entity from the organization, what kind of controls do you have to monitor the tax collector and those monies that are coming in? Cash disbursements, we would look at, do you have bidding processes? Do you have quote processes? What's the process to go through for a purchase? Do you require purchase orders? Do you have purchase requisitions? Who's approving them? Who's signing the checks? Payroll, the same thing. Is there an approval process for timesheets? Who's signing off and everything? What kind of segregation of duties? What we would do is we would come in, look at what your processes are, what kind of improvements can be made. But when you're in a small township, you got to understand that you have to look at the cost benefit, not always, even though you may want to put a control in place, the cost benefit of putting that control in place might not be worth it. So what we'll come in here and say is identify those areas where you have weaknesses, bring them to the board of supervisors, and then you would have to make that call on your own to say, hey, we want to put this control in place, or we don't want to put this control in place based upon the cost benefit of putting that control in place. Also, as part of a first year audit, we would have to reach out to your predecessor auditor, and we would look at their work papers to make sure that we can rely on their beginning balances. We would also go through a process of interviewing board members to identify areas that they have any kind of concerns with. So we could tailor our audit procedures around any kind of concerns that they may have as well. So we would typically go to management, talk to management first, talk to the board of supervisors, and kind of get an idea of where those hot spots are in terms of where you think the areas of concern are most related to that. Also, we develop a lot of our procedures around analytical procedures, just in terms of identifying those areas. So what we could do is we could take your QuickBooks, we could use Excel as a data extraction. And also we could use the data extraction out of our, we have it's called Data Scan out of our CCH Pro system. But usually with QuickBooks, we could use Excel and be able to get the same kind of results. It's not that, difficult, especially on the cash basis related to that. So then we could identify areas that look unusual from year to year. Past couple of years isn't best because of COVID, and then things are, you may put a budget together during the year, but it seems like everybody's budget that they put together, related to 2020 and 2021 have been kind of like skewed just because of the fact that, number one, with your revenues, your tax revenues, real estate tax revenues, or income taxes, I think everybody we're like, oh, we got to be really conservative because of the fact that, we don't know where our revenues are going to be like, but they've come in better than anticipated. And then also there's expenditures you anticipate to have, or you didn't have expenditures because of COVID. So it's tough in terms of that, but, we got to, for the most part, get an idea, how your expenditures are year over year. So, at that, well, yeah. So just to open it. So at the conclusion of the audit, we come and give a presentation to the board of supervisors, provide any kind of recommendations that we may have, like we cannot, give you specific, tell you what to do, but we could say, we could identify areas and, recommend that, hey, let's look at this area and, address, et cetera. So, that's what we do at the conclusion of the audit.
So yeah, I don't want you to think, I think you did a really good job explaining it, but it just seems like we're hearing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. No, but at the end of the day too, we would confirm, we use a lot of third-party confirmations as well. So we'll confirm your cash balances with the bank. We could have very effective audit procedures surrounding your revenues, because of the fact that we could confirm a lot of them with the third party. So we'll actually send a confirmation to your tax collector, to the recorder of deeds, to the tax claim bureau. So we could actually, when we get down to it, we actually confirm about 90% of your revenue through a third party. So, a lot of the risk ends up being on that expenditure side.
Would you be our point person directly? And second, do you provide as a SAS or S-115 letters?
Yeah, so we're required to provide that letter to you. It's the required communication with the board. So we would actually provide that communication with you at the beginning of the process and at the end of the process as well. And I would be the point person. I would have a manager, and I would also have a staff person on the job. So I would think that depending on the level of communication that's required, it might be the manager, it might be me, just depending on how it is. I seem to have some really good managers. People seem to go to them, so that's better for me. So yeah, so everybody's not reaching out to me. So,
Carl, you would do all that here. The manager would be here.
Oh yeah, we are on site. So I would even say throughout this whole COVID process, I would say we've been out on site the whole time. I just think it's just much better than trying to do it by Zoom. And I think, part of our success being, out there and being seen.
Carl, one thing I noticed that you're the only one on, no other firms are on the call right now.
Okay.
But one thing I noticed is it's a related question that, first of all, it seems like firms are starting to get out of this practice.
Correct.
And then your fees structure seems lower than most for partners, managers. I mean, it seems like a tier down, and it's pretty much opposite of what I would expect it from somebody from a firm from Philly, right? I thought that would be higher in the city than it would be out in the suburbs, but it was
It's totally, I could say, like I said, we're never in Philadelphia, and when we configured our office space in Philadelphia, we have a much smaller space compared to the whole office, and we kind of share costs without the firm. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question in terms of.
yeah, no, my main question was, why are firms getting out of this business?
I have no idea. I mean, but it's good because there's not much competition, out there for us. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, us, Maley, barbecuing, running around to the same places and so forth like that. So, and there are a couple other smaller firms, but we seem to be the three main ones. And Zelenkowski, Axelrod, I don't know if you heard of them as well. They seem to be in the arena as well. But we've kind of gotten a niche, and it's especially down here in Chester County, and it's hard to sell. I mean, it's super hard to sell auditing services until you get in here and actually do the work.
One question I also have too is there was a question last year when we did this like a quick thing last year, but is it appropriate, or is it a good practice to switch auditors every so many years?
Well, we're not the auditors, yes. Yeah, that's all. Well, hopefully none of my clients would, but I mean, practices, you should switch auditors or try to switch. What we try to do is switch managers on our jobs.
Yeah.
If you have that familiarity and you don't want to go through that process, I mean, just to go way back. I mean, I used to do this audit when I was at barbecuing almost 15 years ago, and Jeff was here. What's that? Well, I don't know if he even remembers me. I was a lot younger back then, but but what we try to do is we have 3 or 4 managers, and we kind of all switch, and try to be like, hey, we'll do this, because we do get clients that say that, but they don't want to lose that, efficiency of just having the same, firm and so forth like that. Yeah. Yeah. My oldest client by 15 years, I think it might be Newgarden. So,
How long have you been doing London Britain?
Around. Probably a year or two after I got to BBD. So when I was here, there was kind of like a Hatfield McCoy thing going on here, but I'm assuming that's over now.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. It doesn't sound like it's going on anymore.
No.
So, well, all I remember is snow plowing. That's all I hear. So I've been doing London Britain for about 12, 13 years now.
Great.
So I
That's
think,
all I had.
Well, that was one of my questions, was in Philadelphia, you're doing all these things out here
So-
in Lancaster, I'm wondering, yeah.
yeah, so I live in, so it's kind of like we're all strategic. So I live in Garnet Valley. A lot of the things that are done around here, the guy lives in Newark, Delaware. So, and I have a guy up in Birdsboro, a guy up towards Lansdale. So we kind of like divvy it up depending on where we all are. So.
Lynn, do you have a question?
Yes, hi. So I'll ask this one, like I asked earlier, about detecting related party transactions. How would you do that?
That's mostly done, I would think, through inquiry, just trying to identify, talking when we were having that kind of, I mean, they're tough to spot just depending on, depending on the nature of the, we would read the board minutes. We would kind of see if there's any kind of conflicts or identified conflicts based upon reading the minutes or talking to board members, talking to management, and, what kind of projects are going on. So usually when we see related party transactions or some types of conflicts, sometimes they're related to professional services or some kind of contracted services that somebody knows somebody, and, and we try to identify them the best we can. But, the best way we could do is through inquiry, talking to reading the minutes, kind of looking at, various things like that. So try the best we can to identify those, if they're not laid out to us on, a silver platter.
Okay. And then in terms of obtaining the data from the QuickBooks file, would you take a backup and deal with that? Or would you have us export the data and send it to you? How would you do that?
We would ask you, I mean, we could get a backup because we do have QuickBooks, but a lot of times we have specific reports that we ask for, and we ask for them in Excel, so we could take that information and then, sort it how we need to sort it and try to, get the information that we need to get, by sorting the information. Excel is just the best way we could do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. I was remiss in introducing her. She's one of our elected auditors,
Okay, gotcha.
which is why she's, yeah. So I had just a general question about when you come into a new township, what's a common area of improvement that you tend to find?
Well, the common one is obviously the segregation of duties. I think Melissa was even saying that before. That was one that seems to come up. And I think we have to put that out there because it's just inherent, just because of the nature, and say, hey, you have this problem, and there's only so much you could do, without hiring a full accounting staff, et cetera. So, but, I was just talking to her out there, and, I work with Peter, another place. I think that's a great service that he's providing to all the Chester County municipalities, just to provide that oversight where it's only once a month. And, and I think there's some places in Delaware County doing that as well. So it's kind of a, check and balance.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have one more. Your proposal was for a 3-year contract, and if we were going to only do 1 year, you had a $2,500 adder. So that you, is that
put that? Oh, that's it. No, the single audit is
The
so.
single audit.
So the single audit is totally different. So because of the fact that you guys have rescue plan money, a single audit is if you spend over $750,000 in federal money, you have to get a special audit. It's called a single audit. So I just threw that in there just in case, because sometimes your rescue plan money probably didn't go over the 750 spend, but sometimes there's some other appropriations that might, put you over the 750. It could have been like a different grant that you got.
Yeah,
Sometimes the county gives the grants that are federally funded to an extent. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, I'm good.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I could say is that our best, marketing is our existing clients. And I think I've put every single one of our clients and everybody as a reference within Chester County. And I encourage everybody to, contact them. And we have very limited staff turnover. I think I've had one person turnover in 2 years. My staff's great to work with. And, I'm going to knock on wood right now. We don't have any lost clients in 15 years. So, we're just trying. So that's why I say we don't have to switch auditors. We just switch our, I sell it. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks for coming in person.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye, Carl.
Thanks again, Carl.
So
Is Tim on the line, or are you going to let him in? Oh, there. Is that him? Hey, Tim, are you on the line? It just come in. Yeah. Hello, Tim. Can you hear us? It's like you're on mute.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're up next, Tim.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the big tube.
Okay. Can I share my screen to show you the presentation I have?
However you'd like to go through it.
Well, first, I appreciate the opportunity to present, and thank you for letting me do it remotely. I did another meeting earlier, so I apologize for being from my car. just to give you a little bit about Barbecue Thornton and Company. I mean, obviously, we've audited the township for a number of years, but we're a regional public accounting firm headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware. We were established in 1978 by Rob Barbicane, who is now officially retired. But we have 5 current partners with 20 professional staff. And we specialize in the accounting, consulting, auditing, and tax services. The tax services being the preparation of the not-for-profit 990 returns. That's all we do as far as taxes. But we do serve government entities, nonprofits. We do some employee benefit plans and schools, being charter schools, as well as school districts. As far as our firm goes, when you want to know about the knowledge and leadership of our firms, our partners are regular speakers for the PI, CPA, PASBO, and related government organizations. We also serve on the PI, CPA Local Government Committee and the PI, CPA Legislative Committee. The firm is members of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is the AICPA. The AICPA is Government Audit Control Center, and the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials, as well as the PICPA. We also have individuals of our firms that are members of the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, and as well as we also are members of the Maryland GFOA, which is their local version of the national firm. We also have individuals in our firm that have specific credentials to support the government auditing sector. We have certified fraud examiners, or CFEs, certified government finance managers, which is a CGFM certification, certified government auditing professional, which is the CGAP, and also chartered global management accountants, which is the CGMA. Our current experience, as you in with our proposal, we includes a base of over 175 different government organizations, including more than 50 cities, boroughs, and townships within Pennsylvania and their related areas. Because this was a public presentation, I didn't put the any of the governments that we serve currently, but in the proposal, there was a complete listing as well as some references. And a slide here just to talk about the new client conversion. So obviously this doesn't really apply for us as your current auditors, but this is something just to kind of make you aware of. So if you were to switch, some of the challenges you would have, and the predecessor firms probably talked about this, but it's getting to know your personnel and integrating you into their account, into their audit schedule. Whereas we've already kind of established some relationships with your personnel. So we know them a little bit, so we don't have to kind of take all that additional time to learn them or your procedures. And we've already got your time slotted on the audit schedule for next year, should you retain us as well. So we're not trying to, kind of cram you into the schedule. And I will kind of note too, with our experience, like I said, too, with the taxes, we only do the 990 taxes. So if you're thinking of converting, we don't have any distractions with tax season, obviously coming up through April 15th, because we don't do any taxes. We just do government audits and not-for-profit audits. And another thing to also kind of point out, as I'm sure probably the other firms mentioned, people would think, well, it's good to switch just because, we can give you a fresh perspective as far as your eyes go on the audit. We accomplish the same thing, and we do that though through staff rotation. So it's kind of good to have, your audit partner, which would be me, with some historical knowledge of the township. But then as far as the staff that works on the audit, we try to also kind of, at least the person reviewing it at the detail review level before it gets to me, also has some knowledge of the township, just so they know what's going on. But the people doing the actual field work or the testing of all the details, we do kind of rotate them around so that they get a fresh perspective on the clients. With the staffing, your audit team would be consistent of the partner, again, which would be me, and we'd have 2 audit staff on there. So we would have a supervisor who would do the initial detail review, and then a staff accountant performing the detail testing of the work. Our firm policy is to allocate engagement time for the partner to schedule, any check-in meetings. I usually do come out on site at least one day while everybody's out there, just to kind of pop in, see how anything's going, see if there's any issues, see what, the past year's done. A lot of times too, we also, as required by the standards, will meet with at least one board member as part of the audit engagement. So I usually try to make myself available the day that that's scheduled as well. And then also, we're available throughout the year for any consultation on finance or accounting related issues. If there's any kind of, questions or recording of a transaction that, might be somewhat, non-regular. You might just have a question on, well, how do we record this? Prefer that you would call us and ask us during the year, as opposed to kind of waiting and then having to maybe fix it or change it at the end of the year. And we don't believe in billing for those short conversations or questions. We kind of consider that as part of the annual audit fee. So it's not something that we would be charging extra for. Obviously, with the COVID pandemic that hit us, we were able to kind of switch, and so we do remote auditing a lot now. Pure audit, I would imagine, would be what we would consider a hybrid, where we would maybe come out on site 1 or 2 days to do testing of the details. It makes it easier to just kind of review a lot of the invoices and other documentation on site, instead of having you have to scan everything. But obviously we can also accommodate that if that's something that you would prefer. And we've kind of always worked remotely, whereas in the past the audit was done 100% there at the township, and now it's kind of a mix of at the township, in our office, or our staff themselves working from home, as much people do these days. But our cloud-based systems support that audit technology to allow us to do the remote auditing. As far as uploading information, we have the secure portal and other software applications that enable us to maintain communication with our individual staff, as well as the people at the township that we need to contact to get any information for. Our audit approach it's kind of based on targeting areas of what we consider to be greater audit risk. It's a 4-part approach to that, where we do inquiry and documentation of the controls and procedures for recording your various transactions. Then we go on and test the design and implementation of those controls to make sure that they're operating effectively. Then we do some analytical review of activities and different account balances, maybe looking at variances, trying to determine why something, is not what we would expect based on our knowledge. And then, of course, the detailed testing of any key activities or account balances. Once we formulate that approach, we have certain areas that are emphasized during the audit. Obviously, anyone that's having an audit done, one of the major areas is potential for improper revenue recognition. So through third-party confirmation and review of supporting documentations, maybe such as grant agreements or grant awards, we'll take a look and see if your revenue is fairly stated. We'll also do third-party confirmation of your cash accounts and any debt. We'll also kind of focus on the larger expenditures, being like capital outlay expenditures, if you have any kind of construction or major equipment purchases during the year. And it's also one of the schedules in the DCD report that we have to fill out each year. And then, of course, we'll also focus on payroll expenditures and the related benefits, because in any organization that we're auditing, payroll and the personnel expenditures are the largest, usually, of the overall expenditures of any township or government entity. And then obviously throughout the rest of the audit, we're randomly selecting other transactions to test It's an audit doesn't look at 100% of all the transactions, but we like to try to get a different coverage each year, not look at the same thing. So depending on what we're doing, like I say, we'll select certain transactions and look at the supporting documentation to make sure, again, that everything is recorded and presented fairly in your DCD report. We also have some different data analytics tools that we can use. So we have a proprietary analytic tool based on Power BI, which is payroll focused. So when we're doing a lot of the payroll, we'll run this on the population that we're testing. And it gives us some good information on the payroll cycle. We also have Caseware IDA, which among some of the different things that it'll allow us to do, looks for duplicate vendor testing. If there's any kind of purchase card or credit card transactions, we do testing on those. And it also do gap detections, i.e. if there's missing check numbers or purchase order numbers, just to give you an example of a few of the things that it can pick up on when we take a look at those. And then, of course, during the audit, if there's any potential findings, we'll review any findings with the township controller and manager, as well as the township operations manager before finalizing the audit. If there's anything that, we do that because sometimes, we may find something and they might say, well, no, we actually do this, and they can show us the process or the documentation they have saying that, and then we might revise the finding. Obviously, if it's something that's extremely important, we would probably ask to have a meeting with the Board of Supervisors to go over anything with them. But if it's none of that, we'll meet with them first, and then we do issue that, though, in a letter that goes out as part of the audit if there are any recommendations we have that might help improve any controls, et cetera. If we do have a finding, then management, of course, is given their opportunity to provide a response, which would be, kind of sort of like a corrective actioning plan, which if we had those, then we would follow up with those in a future audit. And like I said, they would also be presented to the Board of Supervisors at the completion of the audit in the letter. And then we always offer to meet with the board at the end of the audit to go over audit results at a board meeting, in which case, if there were any findings or anything, we'd also be communicating them to you as well. So what kind of differentiates us from the other companies? And it's really our core values. So our core values are quality, responsiveness, and integrity. So, in quality, we want to exceed your expectations to having the audit done. If there are certain things that you're telling us that the way they transactions work and all, for example, we want to challenge your assumptions to make sure that they're there. And of course, we're going to adhere to our professional standards all the time. And with our quality, we want to do it right the first time, but then we're going to double check it. And that's also part of our audit process, where I mentioned we'll do the audit, the field work will be reviewed by the supervisor. I get it as a partner review, and then we will actually have another partner independent of your audit take a look at it for our quality control purposes before it actually goes out the door. Under responsiveness, obviously, we want to meet or exceed ENLI deadline. So with the DCD audit, obviously that's filing it by April 1st at the latest. We've, I believe, usually filed your audit sometime, early to mid-March. We also want to be there as your trusted advisor. Like I mentioned, if you have questions throughout the year, we want you to feel free to go ahead and call us and ask us, what's the correct way to record this transaction so that we make sure we've got it and we've got all the proper documentation, et cetera. And, we want to, respect your time. And that's part of why we do the remote auditing now, or the hybrid auditing, I should say, with the remote aspect of it. So, we're not necessarily crashing your space there and taking up your staff all their time to keep them away from doing other things, but at the same time, want to meet your needs for the audit. And under integrity, obviously, that's, we want to do the right thing for the right reason and the right way. We want to be dependable, like I said, so you know that we're going to meet that deadline. And then, we're going to be accountable for any of our actions. Obviously, because we're working for you, we report directly to you as well. And like I said, we're going to respect the team members and the township employees and their time, because we know it's valuable for the services that they need to provide for your residents. So that's kind of a overview of our firm, what we can kind of, give you for, continued auditing services. Like I say, we've been doing the audit for a number of years, but I will open it up to any questions at this point that you may have. I will also go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can have the control back. Like I said, I will more than happy answer any questions anybody may have.
Hey, Tim, is the hybrid an option, the hybrid audit an option, or is that what you do now? That's not an option. It's not an option to have full on-site.
If you would prefer to have full on-site, we could certainly do that. I would say most of our audits now usually are hybrid, but a lot of that is because the clients are more in tune to that. That's what they want. But if you wanted us there on-site the whole week for the audit, we can definitely accommodate that.
I can't remember. Did you do that last year here? The hybrid? It was hybrid.
I think it was hybrid. Yeah, we were there, I think 2 or 3 days.
That seemed to work out really well, I think, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the hybrid is nice because, like I said, it really, so instead of like if we do a sample of invoices, when we say, well, we'd like to see these 40 invoices, it's much easier for you just to kind of pull them and have them available, as opposed to having to scan them and upload them all to our portal. So it's also somewhat time saving. And that's, the main thing. And in a lot of places too, if we're testing payroll, for instance, and looking at personnel files, even though our portal is secure and you could upload it there, a lot of people are kind of hesitant to, do that with those kind of records. So it makes it easier to come out. So.
Hi, Tim, thank you very much. I'm a new supervisor, so as of a few weeks, so I don't really know the answer to this question. I've asked the other firms presenting. Was Barbicane the supervisor or the audit firm for candidates, say maybe 5 or 6 years ago?
We were.
Okay. Is there anything that you can comment? I know there's a lot of legal things that you may not be able to answer, but is there anything that the process that fell through the cracks on the process, or that was basically something that would not have been able to have been discovered?
So I will refer you to, if you want to do some research on that. You can go to the Certified Fraud Examiner's website, and they put out a report every year that'll talk about fraud and the different ways that fraud's detected. Like I mentioned before, a financial statement audit does not audit 100% of all the transactions. A lot of it's done on sampling and test basis. So with the certified fraud examiners, it's about 15-16% of audit of fraud that actually might be detected through an audit. The number one way to detect fraud is usually through a tip, which is why we do interviews with the staff as well as the board member to kind of see if anything's going on. As far as with the Kennett situation, I know they used to have information on their website about the incident that happened there. And obviously with the court system, I guess some of that information is probably public knowledge as far as the case itself went and the extent to create additional fraudulent documents that were provided as part of the support. So it was really a big effort to kind of try to conceal that all. So I think probably legal wise, it's probably about all I should say on that, but I think I do know that they had stuff on their website before. I don't know if they've taken it down or not yet, but that was there. But the Certified Fraud Examiner's report gives you kind of a good flavor for how different types of fraud are detected. Like I said, number one is through a tip, or being able to talk to the individuals there and have them feel comfortable enough and not coerced by anybody else to at least kind of mention concerns. And then in that instance, you can go on and, we can look at other documentation in there. And I've had instances where when I've talked to, had an instance at a school where I actually talked to the office manager and asked them if they had any concerns, and they kind of gave me an answer to say, well, maybe you should look at some of these transactions. And we did, and we uncovered a fraud there, and then reported it to the board, and then it was taken on to, additional legal action at that point from the board. So.
I'm not on mic. Online, we have one of our elected auditors. Lynn Weber, do you have a question for Tim?
Yeah, hi, Tim.
Hi, Lynn.
Are there any unresolved questions from last year's audit?
I don't believe there's any unanswered questions. I don't have the report in front of me, so I'm not sure. We may have had some recommendations, which if we were returned, they would have been in a management letter. And if there were any, we would follow up on those when we did the audit this year. But I don't think there are any open questions or any audit issues that we had at the end.
Okay. And then do you anticipate any special problems with this year's audit?
None that I'm aware of now. Obviously, as I mentioned, as part of our audit every year, we would talk with Melissa. We'd also talk to at least one of the board members to see if they had any concerns or if there's anything that they wanted us to look at specifically, if they had a concern, or as a group they had a concern. But at this point, I don't anticipate anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Yeah, I don't think so. Want to close this out?
Tim, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. And I think what we're going to do is we will open this back up at the next meeting, our regular meeting of the month, which is in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And that's when we'll discuss who, in all these firms, who we're gonna vote for, I guess, and amongst the board.
Okay.
And the elected auditors, they're going to be involved in the decision as well.
Okay. All right. If you do think of any questions after this, if there's any other additional information I can provide you, just please reach out and I will let you know.
Okay. Well, thank you again for your proposal and your presentation.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye.
So Jim, I just want to thank you for putting this together, because I thought it was very helpful, and I have a sense of where I want to go, and it just, I thought this really made a difference.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we close out and go on to the next subject, which will be our budget discussion, do we want to talk at all about our thoughts now, or do we want to wait and hold our opinions until we have a chance to think on it?
So this is my personality. I would like to do it now, but I
That's
totally,
cool. I'm
but I
good with it.
totally understand if everybody else doesn't. So I think we should just go with what the folks want to do.
with that. You want to talk about, I don't know, do we make a vote now?
I just want to discuss.
Just discuss.
We're not gonna, so the motion will be, we'll have the motion at the meeting, at the board meeting.
Yeah.
This will just be a discussion on
Sure.
what we just heard.
Yeah. So
This is
I,
a workshop.
yeah, so I would just start off, I thought it was interesting. First, it was a learning experience for me. This is not what I do. And I know some folks here are more in the money than I am in terms of their daily job. But I get the sense that what they do is pretty similar. And so it's not like it's rocket science, but I gotta be honest, I was really impressed with the first two.
Yeah.
I don't know costs and all, but I'm hoping that is that what you have? Yeah.
13,000 for number one,
Okay.
8,000 or 1350 for number one, 8,500.
Okay. I just think, I think they're both, so Millie is, I mean, Chris has always been
Yeah.
very, it's just his personality and it comes through and he's, you know, he has a process in mind, the way he talked about what they do. I mean, it was an excellent presentation that he did off the cuff. Like I said, the second time we heard from him, I thought he was excellent. I thought Carl was excellent too. I like the fact that he has a lot of folks in the area. For Barbican, I think he's okay, but I think it's time for something different. So, I don't think we can go wrong with either one or the other.
Dawn?
I like the first one. I like Chris. Oh. I like Chris a lot. I think he was very thorough. And I think he really, right off the top of his head, really knew what he was talking about. I was a little concerned that they didn't have any clients down by us. That I looked at that again tonight, and I had looked at it before, and I wondered why. So,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't know whether we would follow up with any of their references, or do we know anybody in Kennett that we could talk to, or?
No.
Yeah, I just wondered if it was worth doing a reference check with somebody. But usually references don't say anything bad. Anyway. Yeah.
Dates of employment is the worst thing.
Really? Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. And I'm also interested to know what our young lady thinks, because she has to deal directly with them. So that's we'd like to know her.
Melissa wants to stay out of it, I think.
I know.
Stefan, do you have comments?
Well, I'm obviously relatively new here. So I don't have the history with regards to the desire, the wanting to change. Just relative to what I heard tonight, and I do agree with Donna with regards. It sounds like much of the same. I thought that Carl, the first two I thought were a little bit better. I thought Carl's personality they do the exact same thing as Chris's from Millie. But I think Chris is probably maybe a little bit more presenting and polished, I guess. What might be, that's a good word. But I think that Carl's firm does exactly the same thing for $5,200 less, and they have a very good broad client base within the government. So if you're asking me to rank, it'd probably be 2, 1, 3.
Gotcha.
And I do give a little bit of a check mark for the fact that he actually came down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Jim?
So I would probably rank them the same, 2, 1, 3. The reason I think Mally had a very good proposal. They put it together, maybe the best one of all 3. However, they're the most expensive. My question would be, they all have the same requirements. So what do we need somebody that is the most polished? Or do we go with somebody who is, the next best, but the cheapest of all? They have the most employees in their firm. They seem very professional too. They haven't lost, by his word, they haven't lost any clients. They haven't lost any of their employees. That's big. If you're not losing employees during this COVID time, I mean, people are flying, they're going everywhere because they don't have to go out of their house anymore.
Their client base is closer to ours.
Yeah,
That's
true.
Right.
The client base is.
That's good too. I mean, that's similarity, that could be, they could find some things. And then lastly, the Barbicane does have a point where, when you switch over, it's going to be harder for Melissa. That's this first year. It's going to be harder for Melissa. It's going to be a new auditor if that's who we pick, and if we pick somebody different than Barbicane. But it might be good to get somebody fresh in.
Lynn, you asked some good questions.
Thanks.
What are you thinking?
I like BBD the best, and one of the reasons was because they specifically mentioned that they would contact the prior auditor. And I know that's the standard to do, but he mentioned that. And then he said they were going to use confirm letters, and that would basically be for the revenue, and the exposure would be the expenses. And I mean, he's the best price, and I just thought like they were saying number of employees, and then the perimeter, the similar clients that they currently have.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
What do you think, Chair?
So I think I'm echoing everybody's sentiment. You know, I'm not, this is not my area of expertise at all, but they all sound like they do the same job. The one thought that I had as Melee, Melee was going through his process. It seemed like there was too much more than we need. Like, I don't know if we need predictive analytics on our very small township here. And so I think they sound like they're kind of a Ferrari type service. So you pay for that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, you know, to echo everyone else is, you know, Carl came in
I'm
and
looking forward to the Banford curve though.
yeah, that's true. I wrote that down too. I was going to go Google that when I got home. But I think I'm going to echo everyone's. I think BBD was a solid presentation. I mean, the skill, like, he didn't come up with a PowerPoint or whatever, but he talked through his work. He's got extensive local customers, and so and I think he comes in at a reasonable price compared to the other two folks. So I think I would agree
even
with
if,
the folks that.
Even if Barbicane doesn't raise their price in the next 3 years, it's still $5,500 savings.
Right.
With BBT.
Yeah.
BBD.
BBD.
I keep calling them BBT. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So I think I'd be comfortable with BBD as well.
I thought that was good. So not that we're voting, but I think it's
Well, it's good to have the conversation here.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
thank you very much, Lynn, for joining us. I appreciate your input.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad I could do it.
And Jim, you'll check with, I mean, this is not a final, you'll talk with the auditors and just see what they have.
I'll grab all of them with Lynn.
Okay, and then we'll see if unless we miss something glaring, but
Yeah.
we're all on the same page. Good.
All right.
That was good. Thank you.
Donna.
Oh, gosh. Really?
Now it's business.
I'm not hearing anything.
Sorry, I've been doing that all night. I forgot to turn my mic on, so it's like the third or fourth time I forgot to do that. So we're transferring over to a new topic, 3327 Appleton Road. This is to discuss a certificate of appropriateness applications for 3327. These were discussed and approved by the Franklin Township Historic Commission at their meeting last week, Paul, I believe. Was it?
Yeah, so basically a week ago today, I would just alter that slightly, simply saying that we don't approve them, you do. And so what we did was we recommended that they were appropriate. And so it's the supervisors who actually need to make the approval.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And so this is for the removal of a wooden addition on the back of the home and stairs and deck on the side of the home and construction of new steps and landing on the side of the home. And so that's the installation of a new manufactured shed and boarding up of house windows per the owner's insurance company. So Paul, is there any kind of summary that you'd like to talk through about these COAs? Any context you'd like to give the board before we ask any questions, if we have them?
I would just say that broadly that these are mostly in keeping with other things that have happened to various properties within the historic district. The deck and stairs that are being removed are in poor shape, and they're going to be replaced by a smaller landing and stairs that are of similar construction. What's being replaced there and what the back addition that's frame, not brick, was also previously noted by the Historical Commission as not being part of the historical core of the house. And finally, I think the rest of it is pretty much self-explanatory. The boarding up that's occurred has been, under the circumstances, reasonably tasteful and is required by the insurance company in order to maintain insurance on the property. It is not, it's obviously not the existing windows when you see it from the street, but it does not represent a crude plastering over the windows with boards and is reversible.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Board members, do we have any questions for Paul on the COA? Okay. So let's move forward then. So I make a motion to approve the COA, Certificate of Appropriateness applications for 3327 Appleton Road, which were discussed and approved by the Franklin Township Historical Commission at their meeting held on November 28th, 2022. May I have a second? Okay, thank you, Don. Any further discussion?
May I interrupt and suggest a correction for the record? That was not the Historical Commission, but the Historical Architectural Review Board.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense.
All right, do I need to reread this? So I'll make the motion to approve the COA for 3327 Appleton Road, which was discussed and approved by the Franklin Township Historical Architectural and Review Board at their meeting held on November 28th. May I have a second? Thank you, Dawn. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
And Paul, you ran a great meeting on that Monday, so thank you for that. Thank you for your help.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, you have a nice evening.
You do the same.
All right. So now let's talk about the budget. Okay. Yeah, bring on the budget. So Melissa, do you want to make any introductory comments, or do you want me just to, I mean, how do you want to handle it? Did you get the new draft? Yeah, but I didn't get it till I was here, so I'll probably just go back to my same comment. I mean, if you.
got the chart of the email that I.
Yeah, I have that, but I'm still confused. So, let me, I'll make a statement. So, just for everyone to know, Melissa's done a fantastic job putting this budget together, and I've gone back and forth with her on questions, just so I had a sense of what was going on. And she's been wonderful answering my questions, and I'm down to one item that I still can't get my head around, and that is mowing. So, and I think part of it has to do with, Melissa, you're trying to organize the way we capture mowing in the budget a little bit different than we did last year. And also, based on, and I got this from Jeff, historical information, our costs for mowing have gone up just because that's what the costs are. So we have a bidding process, and in that bidding process, we had two costs in 2022, and they were significantly higher than what we've had in the past. And that made Melissa having to do some allocation of additional fund in the general fund into the park fund to pay for that. But we're committed to doing the mowing. We want to maintain our properties. So maybe you can answer this for me, Melissa, and I can get away from my mowing question. I'm just trying to understand how much money we spent in 2022 for mowing, based on, whether it's township office mowing, whether it's roadside mowing, whether it's park mowing, anything to do with mowing, what those costs were compared to what we're allocating to the budget for 2023. Are the numbers similar, or are we anticipating that we're going to be spending a significant amount more? I feel like it's the latter, but I just need to get a sense of what that, if that's true, and if it's true, why? You think you can answer that tonight, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's the total cost of mowing across the board for roadside mowing, township mowing, park mowing, preserve mowing, weed eating. Everything mowing is 93,000 to 5875.
That's for 2022, or what you're projecting for 2023?
Correct.
No, don't, if you want.
No. We are projecting that for 2023.
Okay, and what do we
Because
do?
we know for 2021, when John and I worked on the budget, we had assumed that Yard Works was going to put in a bid for the township mowing and crossing park mowing. Because they did not put in that bid in 2022, that's what threw the budget off, because JPS Landscaping had to take over the budget,
Right.
or the mowing, which wrecked.
Right, so how much are you, now understanding that, how much are we projected to spend for mowing in 2022? I just want to compare 2022 to 2023.
In total, across all funds, $93,000.
All right, so based on your analysis, the cost for mowing between 2022 and 2023 is not changing.
No,
Okay, all right, that's what I want to know. I understand why it went up from 2021 to 2022, because that was because.
correct. But what
Of
we
the-
spent in 2022 will be very similar to 2023.
Gotcha.
It's just what we budgeted in 2021 for 2022, and the bidder didn't happen in 2022. We had to rebid it.
Right, okay, all right, so that answers that one question, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
The other, and the only thing I have then besides that is a comment. And
Sure.
I don't think this is it's not a bad thing, it's just a comment. So I just want to comment on, in the general fund under 430, 310 engineering services, we are seeing a significant increase in money for engineering services. But I'm totally in aligned with that, because it's very much similar to what we spent in 2022, and it has to do with Ron Reagan.
Correct.
We're using his
'Cause,
services
yes,
to do some very complicated work.
yes.
that-
Jeff
that we
like
need.
relies on Ron Reagan for
Right, so I
all
think,
the background for that. So
so I think that's really important. And then I know, we may have folks on or that may listen to this, the PRO budget, just to understand that we have put into the PRO budget some additional money to cover this additional expense for mowing, because we find it something that's very important for us to do. So just an acknowledgement that there's some additional money put into the
absolutely.
PRO budget
Yes.
to take care of mowing. And then my last comment would be for everyone, just to be aware that we did make a decision during the year from an open space perspective to put $20,000 in the budget for that. And that was done in 2022. We're allocating another 20,000 for 2023. And in addition to that, we have a reserve fund, which we're trying to get up to a 6-month operating
Correct.
cost. And that was, I think it's 32,000 we put in for that. So
33,
30, thank you.
30.
So I just want the public to know that we are trying to be responsible and make sure that we have money set aside for these important projects. So that's all I have. So thank you.
And the money, Donna, from the open space reserve fund was moved out to the reserve fund for open space today. And
Yeah, I
I did
saw
all the banking transfers.
So thank you. All right, so that's all
Thank
my
you, Donna.
comments. I thank Melissa. She's done a great job.
Any other questions or comments on the budget?
This is my, again, couple weeks, so this is my first real stab. And thank you, Melissa, as well. Just a couple quickies here. Health insurance is up, 51,000 budget for 2023 projection is 18,000. That's 487.100.
General funds.
So it went back down because they made a mistake. They still were covering June, so it went back down.
Okay,
What number is that?
487.100.
I corrected it on here.
100, yeah. Oh, went back down. Okay.
So it's back down.
Yeah,
It's
just-
corrected now.
Was an anomaly that kind of caught my attention, so.
Yep.
Insurance automobile, do we have a company car in Franklin Township?
Yeah, Jeff.
Did you get a company car?
A truck.
That's right.
Man.
So we have that.
You got perks now. I mean,
Now, so when you were here before, his truck was falling. Do you remember it was falling apart? Like he was trying to hold it together with just a wire.
it worked. It worked. Another question, building permits, 55,000, this goes back to something John Arbach had mentioned. Just if we are going into a slow period potentially in housing, in people's pocketbooks or whatever, is it wise? Again, it's 55,000 budgeted. We're projected to do 55. So I'm just kind of wondering if that might be just a little bit of, just to be safe, to make sense to take it down. Just
I think they cancel themselves out because usually whatever, is this one of those things, Melissa, where you put $55,000 in for the permits, but there's also money for creditors to pay for it, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they just kind of knock each other out.
Right, they knock each other out. That's just like a dead fund, really.
Okay, it's coming back. Avondale Westgrove Fire. Westgrove is up a lot. Avondale is down.
Right.
So the question
Their
is,
call volume went down.
exactly, so I mean, in total, is it hard to switch a little bit more resources towards Avondale at the expense of Westgrove if they're gonna raise? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does make sense, and it is hard because Avondale's districts over here, West Grove is primarily over here. So if you take Avondale going into West Grove's district, it's going to be higher response times, less staffing. Where West Grove is more staffed, they have 2 stations, multiple engines, and more staff that fills it.
Okay, just. The macro affects everybody, and one went down quite a bit and the other one up is continuously always going up. Okay.
You missed their presentations.
Yeah, I was gonna say all.
Yeah, you just missed them.
Come on, you're really on question 5. You have 20 to go.
I got, yeah.
Yeah, just so you know, Stefan, those numbers aren't made up. Those are the numbers they gave us. So it's like
Yeah, they attended a meeting.
Yeah, I saw the numbers from a previous email. I just was surprised by that. One being, and cleaning services is doubled from what it was last year. These are all stuff that we can take offline. We don't have to do this right now. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that's. I need reading glasses.
Go to your buddy Jim.
Okay, now it's township office mowing. We covered that. Okay, insurance, auto, health insurance. I think we're good. I don't want to take up time.
No,
here.
you're not taking up my time.
No,
Oh,
for
there's
example,
something there.
that's the mowing. So,
Oh.
okay, that combined. So no, I'm good. I'm good.
That was the easiest 20 questions ever.
All right.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm good.
Have any questions?
I think that's it.
Once again, I think it's a testament to what a good job you done, Melissa. I mean, last year was tough and you and John worked hard to get it to where it is. And then I think this year you've been working with the group and Peter and that group, so making sure.
Well, Connie's been a
Connie.
big help. Her and I rewrote the whole charted accounts to match
Right, and I,
DC standards and stuff
And
like
she
that, so
recovered.
everything matches up
Right.
now.
and I think what's
$100,000.
Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, I don't know if you picked up on that, Stefan. There's a number in general funds. I was like saying to her, where did this come from? She goes, there was money that was due to the escrow account that through the work that Melissa was doing with Pony's group, they found out that we never got the money back from the people. So Melissa went after it and we've gotten almost was $100,000 or thereabouts from. Yeah, so that's
Collections is still coming in,
yes, so.
What are we?
Just-
like 101,000
That's, I know, I just, because you.
collection. Can we add that to my
You think
title?
about the
Yeah.
exercise.
I think that should be, yeah.
You've done a great job, Melissa. You should be
Yes.
proud of yourself.
If I get a check in, Sarah will bring it, go part of your collections and we have like.
It goes to the Christmas party. fund.
Unbelievable.
Good job, Melissa.
Every dollar goes back to the taxpayer.
Taxpayer money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Another excellent job on the budget.
Thank you, everybody.
This is John Auerbach. I got a couple of comments on the budget. I can wait till the end or we can do it right now.
We're almost at the end anyway, so I think you can, if they're short, why don't we do it
Yeah.
now?
They're short, just kind of addressing what Stefan had indicated about West Grove and Avondale. The responsibility for their coverage is based on some geographical information. Avondale covers about 10% of Franklin Township and West Grove covers 90%. And Avondale covers the northern part of our township. I believe it's Landenberg Highlands and White Clay Knoll or up that way. And the reason for that arrangement is response time from their central location. So to shift services from one township, one fire company to the other is probably not appropriate because of that geographical arrangement. But both of these fire companies have been very responsible financially and, have really good budgets and justify their expenses. Their costs are going up for lots of reasons. So generally, we don't really argue with them. We do look at the numbers and make sure we understand them, but rarely do we push back on them. I guess the only other comment I saw on the Park and Recreation Fund related, I guess this is related to mowing. The transfer from the general fund into the park fund went from 10,000 to 30,000. So I assume that 20,000 was probably part of this mowing issue.
Yeah, yes, you want to say, yeah, Melissa will say yes. Yeah.
Only other general comment I have is, let's see, we combined the impact fee funds, east and west, and that's probably appropriate in the budget, but you do need to keep those expenses separate. They are separate geographical areas, east and west, and I'm not sure how they were determined, but they were determined by our law firm many years before I ever got on the board. But these funds are funds that the developer pays to the township as a result of their impact for development. So they can either build facilities or pay a fee in lieu, and they all pay a fee in lieu. So if their development occurs in the west end, then that money's got to be spent in the west end and vice versa for the east end. So although the budget doesn't separate them, you will need some accounting system to keep those separate.
I have it separate in QuickBooks, John.
Yeah, okay. There's nothing wrong with what you did in the budget, but geographically, you got to spend the money in the section where the income came from. So just going through the budget, I don't see any other issues. The only issue we got is a cash flow issue on the open space fund. You need to pay that that principal payment in January, somewhere around $100,000. So that's not a budget item, it's a cash flow issue.
107.
Yep. That's why you end up with so much extra at the end of the year, because you have to pay that fee at the beginning of the budget year. Generally, I don't have any other questions. The budget looks good. It's clear and easier to see, easier to read. So kudos to Melissa and the board for putting together a good budget. So no other comments.
All right, thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
All right, so if there aren't any other comments on the budget, we can move on to the final line item, the 2022 interim road program. The first line item is a 30-day extension for yard works, and then a general update on the program.
Yes, sir. Both Ron Reagan and I have been working together developing a revised interim road program bid. I believe a lot more simpler, a lot more realistic than it was before. Ron had some good ideas, I believe. Right now, the bid package is sitting in Guy Donatelli's email box for review. And then once he weighs in, I'm more than happy to share it with the board.
So can I ask a question? Why? Why is Guy looking at a road program? I don't.
It's just from a legal standpoint, just to make sure that we've covered everything.
So I'm still confused. So what's the legal aspect of what roads we want to look at?
It has nothing to do with the roads. Just about, it's hard to explain, Donna, to make sure the bid package is.
Oh, it's for the bid
written
package. That's what
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Okay, it's the bid.
It's for the bid package
Got it.
itself. But again, kudos to Ron. I thought he had some great ideas this year. So I enjoy working with him.
Sorry, Jeff, so when you say the bid, it's the bid package for the,
Interim road program, correct.
and what is it? Does it include a list of roads?
No, that is what I call traditionally the yard works bid that he's had before. So it'd be like filling potholes.
Oh,
Putting
gotcha.
up stuff.
Like
so
maintenance,
it's
road maintenance stuff. Okay, and so it's just the bid package, so you can put it out for a bid. And that's why we're doing the 30-day, because it's not ready yet, so it gets, got it, okay, I'm
Correct.
sorry, all right.
So the way that I had the bid packages before, I had revised last year's, but I did leave this 30-day extension clause in there because over my 20-some years here, we've run into this before. So it's just a safety net. It's the same hourly pricing, same standards he has to meet. He's not getting anything extra. So he offered that to us and we have the ability to accept it.
That's nice of him.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'll read the motion here. So are there any other questions for Jeff on this 30-day extension? Okay. All right, so I make a motion to approve the extension letter offered by J. Dominic DeRazio Incorporated, aka Yardworks, until January 31st, 2023 for the 2022 interim road program. The terms, conditions, and hourly rates from the 2022 interim road contract will remain in effect until January 31st, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. All right, and then do we have a further update on the interim road program, or was that it?
That's it. Just to give you an update on what I call the larger program, I've come up with what I call my laundry list or attention list. I've given that to the board. Ron's come up with his. Ours are extremely similar. So what we're hoping to do over the next week, or two, if schedules allow, I hope they do, where Ron and I will go out and travel some of these roads and see everything firsthand together, discuss it, and then we'll finalize that list. But the way things are looking right now, I know I keep saying this to the board, but we may have a pretty extensive cost to our stormwater in 2023.
Right.
I just don't want you to be shocked with that.
But we have the money in the budget from the rescue fund, and we have money in our road. I mean, we should do what we need to do. And I think, I guess the comment I have for you, Jeff, is, this could be my perception, but I always feel like we're late getting the road program started. So, you and Ron are doing the right things. You're putting together, and I look at it as a draft list, and you're going to look at it. But can we get it back to the board? I know you have to look at it again once the winter's over, but get it to us so we can start putting our plans together and getting the bid package out for our road. So we're not waiting until September to start doing the road program or whatever.
Oh, I would absolutely love to.
Okay.
That's certainly a goal of mine. And I know everybody knows this, with me being out for 2 weeks has kind of set me a little bit behind, but that would be a wonderful thing. I would love nothing more than to do it in the next week with Ron and then get that list developed.
We have, we invested in the robotics, and we already have, we developed a couple of years ago that 5-year plan.
Yep.
We executed on that plan.
Yep.
And we have about a year's worth of road work left in
Yep.
that initial plan. Would that be the reasonable starting point to just say, here's the amount of roads that we'd like to get done this year?
That is a reasonable starting point. Ron and I kind of went different directions, and we kind of came to the same conclusion, but there's only one anomaly in that data from robotics, and simply because they weren't able to differentiate robotics from what we own with London Britain. So it's a little bit, it's
right.
a little bit.
I know what you're
skewed.
talking about. There's a couple of roads that half roads. There are a couple of half
Right.
roads that are on the list that shouldn't be there.
Right.
Yep.
Do we still have meetings early in the year with regards to, we did that years ago, we're gonna have a road program
Yes.
meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can
We usually
absolutely.
have 3.
Okay.
Yes.
With Donna's, I don't know if you can hear me, but with Donna's request, can we maybe do it a little bit earlier?
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking if he can get that list to us early, and then we can, we established this 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And this is actually we're probably more further along than we thought we would be.
Yeah.
So the goal would be him setting up this road list based on current world, and then we would have that meeting. The issue is, come springtime, some roads usually don't survive the winter that were probably in pretty decent shape beforehand. So the issue that we faced in the past, not to extend this conversation, was we waited until March, right, March, I guess, to start the conversation, because it was after the winter. We got through this freeze-thaw cycle, and we could see the roads that blew up that might need to be, repaired immediately. But I think what we've talked about is being able to extend our road bid, our bid package to say volume of roads, right?
Right.
Can we, we can't wholesale change the bid package, but can we swap out a road if one blows up and we can and it seems like there's a way we can do that, where if we do have an emergency, we can change the bid that the contractor agreed to.
And
Change the road.
Yeah.
We can't change the bid. We can change the, sorry, thank you. We can change the road that, the contractor agreed to. So that was the hiccup in the past.
I don't want to speak for Ron Reagan, but one of the things we discussed was actually doing 2 bid packages. One would be for the paving, and then one would be for the stormwater management work.
That's gonna make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I know Ron's got some numbers to crunch with a couple of these projects, calculations, trying to make sure things work, what he wants to do. So one of them is a rather large infiltration pit in Thompson Estates in its outfall.
Stefan, I know you're brand new and haven't been around very long, so just in case you're not aware, we do have workshop meetings, so we actually have twice, like, so instead of having to come in an afternoon, you can actually do like a first Monday of the month, and that could be our road meeting, and then we can do a couple of them, but we have that ability of those dates already on the calendar, so, you know, whether it's February or January, whatever, we can get there sooner rather than later.
And if you're free, Stefan, one afternoon, the engineer and I would be happy to take you out and to look at stuff. Happy to do it.
He's got a truck.
Yeah, it's a truck, yeah. I know truck.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Anything else we want to talk about with the road program before we move on? All right, so now we move to public comment. This is the final public comment of the evening. This can include comments on anything attendees might want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township.
It's John Auerbach, we're a resident and taxpayer. I was pleased to hear the board's concerned about starting the road program early, because the last few years, program was completed late in the year in October. And that's getting close to the beginning of colder weather. And we've been really fortunate the last few years having a late winter. But in the past, PennDOT has shut down the road program, or at least the liquid fuel part of it, at the end of October because of cold weather. So that hasn't happened for a couple of years. I think we're in the middle of November now, but that could easily happen to us, get into cold weather and the contractor is late going and you won't get it done. So I think it's a function of the way you put the bid package in and when you'd like the guy to start or at least finish. So you could build some date restrictions, timing restrictions in there when you want them to finish. And if you do that early enough, then the contractors can adjust for it rather than just piling it up at the end of the year. There is a little risk there of working up to cold weather and then getting shut down and you can't pave. So that's just an overall comment.
Hey, John, do you think there's a risk that some of the contractors would defer not to bid if you give them that strict limit, start and finish?
I don't know. The guy that you had right now, he prefers to work late in the year, and you've been fortunate to be able to get the work done in a timely manner, but you're working up close to it. In the past, way back, we always endeavored to try to complete the road program, the paving part of it, before school started to avoid the conflicts with school buses. So everybody wants to do that. So I'm sure the contractors will tell you that, but we've always tried to get it done early. So it's just a matter of policy and thought.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right, not hearing any. I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 9:02 p.m. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Donna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that closes us out. Thank you, everybody.
Good meeting.